Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Sintia Ningsih. I'm from English Literature Study Program. In this good occasion, I would like to be a moderator of today's debate. The motion of today's debate is this host the Western states to take a high number of refugees even when faced with domestic problems. For the affirmative side, we have Miss Annakoni Syeilendranita Rafli, speaker, Miss Salya Arwanda Chairunnisa as the second speaker, and Miss Ainul Hamdiyah as the third speaker. For the opposition team, we have Miss Dwita Kartika Aliva as the first speaker, Miss Silfi Ariska Indriyani as the second speaker, and Miss Daniella Rina as the third speaker. Each speaker has 5 minutes to deliver arguments. However, there must be at least one from each team to take the POI. So, without any further ado, the first speaker of the affirmative side, Miss Annakoni's time is yours.
All right. A refugee is someone who has been forced to flee their country because of persecution, war, or violence. Most likely, they cannot return home or are afraid to do so. War and ethnic, tribal, and religious violence are leading causes of refugees fleeing their countries. The 1951 Refugees Convention defines as a refugee as someone who is unable or unwilling to return their country of origin owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for a reason of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or yeah. Why Western states shall take a high number of refugees even when faced with domestic popular opposition? The very reason and the most important is the existence of human rights and the right to life for refugees. So even though the majority of domestic people have a voice against refugees to be alive in their country, government must be wise in responding to this problem. For a humanitarian point of view, the government should continue to accept refugees, whether in small or large numbers. If a country refuses refugees without a clear reason, then that country will be considered selfish and cruel by other countries. They, the refugees, have a same rights as everyone else, plus special or specific protection, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 14, which states that everyone has the right to seek and enjoy asylum from persecution in other countries. The 1951 UN Refugee refugees can help increase the economic in the host country, not only humanitarian reasons, but also because seeking long-term economic benefits. Up small and medium-sized business and stimulate the economy. According to LIRS.com, around 77% of refugees that entered into the US are of working age. Compare that to the US born population, which only has 49.7% in working age. Back in 2020, back in 20 and 50, refugees family contribute as much as $77.2 billion in household income. A notable refugees employment statistics for the US. From a labor perspective, refugees are filling jobs in key industries such as the agriculture and service sector. Many no, thank you. Many refugees have the technical skill and entrepreneurial spirit that will benefit the country they are transitioning to at a large stage in their life. It's a common misconception that refugees tend to take jobs from local residents. In fact, U.S. State Department reports show that refugees are literally filling gaps in the country's job market. Some of the top industries in which they tend to work include manufacturing, healthcare, retail, tourism, transportation, and education. By participating in the labor force and creating new refugees have increased the average income of many host countries. Thank you.
Miss Annakoni spent 4 minutes 19 to second. Now I would like to speak of
Okay, thank you, Cynthia, for giving me the chance to give the speech. Here I am, Dwita Kartika, as the first speaker on the negative side of the house. I would like to say that we refuse to agree with the motion today that this house believes that Western states should take a high number of refugees even when faced with domestic popular opposition. Nevertheless, before I jump to the main point of my speech, I would like to state that I agree with the definition of the motion delivered by the Prime Minister about refugees, but here I would like to deliver an additional point on the definition since the first speaker of the affirmative side failed to present the detailed meaning of the motion. Here's one important point called domestic popular definition. Uh, domestic popular opposition. The definition is it refers to strong political activities, events, and situations that exist within one's own country. Moving from the definition, I will again state that we strongly refuse this House believes that Western states should take a high number of refugees even when faced with domestic popular opposition. Why? Let's take a glimpse at what the first speaker of the affirmative side has delivered. The first one, all about human rights and the right live to life for refugees. In this case, the first speaker of the affirmative side said that from the humanitarian point of view, government should continue to accept refugees without looking at the amount, whether if it's small or large. And government should just help the refugees because they deserve human rights and they have rights to live. But if it's so, why should the government accept the refugees just by paying attention to human rights? Even though the crisis of refugees is currently getting more severe in this world, we still need to think about the origins of the country, the citizens, and the inhabitants. These refugees comes from a country that is having a conflict, war, or political problems. We never know the identity of the refugee, and there is no such thing that will guarantee that the host country that takes the refugees will be kept safe and peaceful. If the refugees themselves were a criminal in their country of origin, it will cause a huge new problem to the host country. It will never be worthy for the Western states that the negative risks, especially in the security facets, here are much higher than the good benefits that might be received. And again, there will be none that can guarantee. Even with a long-term inspection before the refugees are accepted to live in the host country. And the second point is increasing economy of the host country. By saying that most of the refugees are at their productive ages and they can work and they might provide benefits to the host country itself, it indicates that the first speaker of the affirmatives does not critically think of what might happen as the risk of the host country. Accepting huge number of refugees will cause an overpopulation case in the host country. These conditions will lead to a delicate crisis including criminal crimes, violence, poverty, scarcity, bankruptcy, lack of food sources, and etc. To live in a new country, state, will automatically require one to have a place to live, enough food supply, fulfillment of clothing needs, and all the other bare necessities. How is the host country supposed to fulfill these basic needs if the issue of panic buying, food crisis, and even inflation is still frequently exists in this world? Lastly, it is better for the refugees to stay close to their homes, wherever they come from. Yes, there might be a war happening or conflict happening, but who will be fighting for peace if everyone escapes and leaves their homeland? There should be a big group that's supposed to stop the war and the conflict and the problem from inside. The bureaucracy should be reconstructed better. A country with war, conflict, and political problems are always tried to be settled by the whole world, especially the gods that is United Nation. The war will end and peace will be achieved. After this happens, the country will need their citizens and inhabitants to go back to their country to build and construct a better country for everyone. If they keep living and being a refugee, this goal will never be accepted. That is why refugees should never be accepted in any country or state, because it will be better to strengthen the world to be in a peaceful condition with no wars, no conflict, and the refugees can be advised to come back to their country, but with a guarantee of good protection from the closest country. So everything will be safe and settled. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Miss Dwita spent 5 minutes 22 seconds. Now, I would like to call the second speaker of the affirmative side, Miss Salya Arwanda. Time is yours.
Okay, the second speaker, the first speaker of opposite team said that accepting refugees has negative risks because we don't know their background. We have a sense of humanity as a human. Humanity is defined as the act of caring for and assisting others whenever and wherever possible. It entails assisting others requires our assistance. And therefore, when assisting others, one's background is unimportant. When consider their past or their background, will save them from the various circumstances and place. She also said that a huge number of refugees will cause overpopulation. To prevent overpopulation in the receiving country, the country must have terms and conditions. They won't accept how many refugees and can be adjusted to how many citizens they have right now. In order to maintain a stable number of existing citizens. Last argument of a speaker from the opposition team is the refugees should stay still and in their country and face the conflict or war. But in those countries, there are many children, the elderly, and women who maybe they can contribute their energy or fight against the other country physically. I wanna highlight that what if the opposite country is stronger in many ways, despite the fact that fighting counterattacks from opposing countries extremely dangerous for that country, let alone the lack of good and strong weapons and safety hiding place, leave children, the elderly, and in such danger. How many more victims exist? Replacing an aging population with refugees. Population aging results in a higher proportion of the elderly, which generally means more people in economic dependency and fewer people of working age to support their raises. This, this raises policy concern about the fiscal burden on future generations and the viability of social programs because an increase in the elderly population results in increased public expenditures, particularly in healthcare and pensions, as well as a proportional decrease in potential workers contributing to the system. Last, refugees bring experience and knowledge. Refugees bring with them language that others may lack. Many have previously obtained professional qualification in their countries. Most refugees are adaptable, which is a necessary characteristic in any industry. Furthermore, more diverse organizations have higher income, collaboration, and retention rates than less diverse organizations. So, hosting refugees is not the only way for a company to diversity. The experience, talents, and perspective can are among the most significant benefits. Thank you.
Miss Salya Arwanda spent 4 minutes 6 seconds. Now I would like to call the second speaker of the opposition team, Miss Silfi. Time is yours.
Thank you, Cynthia. So, as we heard before, the second speaker from the affirmative side, Ms. Salya Arwanda, stated that it's important because it allows us to put aside our selfishness, our desires, when others need our help, and who will save us from those dangerous situations and locations. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to convince you why Western countries cannot accept a large number of refugees even when faced with domestic popular opposition. First, who will serve their respective countries if many refugees leave their countries in droves and move to Western states? As said by the first speaker from the negative sides, Ms. Dwita Kartika, there may be war, but who will fight for peace if everyone flees and leaves their homeland? One of the closest example is the COVID-19 pandemic. We were all fighting for our own life, our own health, body, and our family. It is better for refugees to stay close with their whole family or relatives. And let's flash back to the pandemic COVID-19 and imagine if many refugees live in Western countries, so they might be live in far away with their families and relatives, and refugees cannot be easily to go their homeland and to see their family if there is an outbreak of disease in this world. The second affirmative speaker also said that refugees bring experience and knowledge because they may have professional qualifications. If so, why should they move to Western country and not make their own country to be better and improve their country by doing something based on what their own professional qualifications? I think it is better to make their own country better than to leave their country. And lastly, replacing an aging population. Okay, please.
Okay, you said that it's better for refugees to make their own country better than to leave their country. But if in their homeland or their country war occurred, how they were in the dangerous place, it's not possible, right?
Thank you for the POI. In my opinion, if there is a war in their homeland and the refugees stay in their homeland, how do they work properly, right? In my opinion, back to the main point that if many refugees leave their homeland, if there any war, um, who will fight for their homeland and who will maintain their country if I mean if work is like work is not work is not only one solution, but they can still fight for their country. Okay, I will continue my argument. And lastly, replacing an aging population with refugees is not a good idea because if they do, their own homeland will be short, will be lack of young people and young power. And moreover, Western countries can produce their own new generation by getting married and having children. That is why refugees should never be accepted in any country or state in a large number. It will be better to strengthen the world to be in peaceful condition with no wars, no conflict. The refugees can be advised to come back to their country, but with a guarantee of good protection from the closest country. So everything will be safe and settled. Thank you.
Miss Silfi Ariska spent 4 minutes 37 seconds. Now, I would like to call the third speaker of the affirmative side, Miss Ainul Hamdiyah.
Okay, thank you for the moderator for letting me. So this house believes that Western countries should accept refugees in large numbers, even when faced with domestic people's opposition, because, as already mentioned by my colleagues, that have the same rights as other people or citizens who are displaced, plus special protection, including Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Article 14, which states that everyone has the right to seek and enjoy asylum from persecution in other countries. And the second statement is in the 1951 Convention and 1960 Protocol protects refugees from being returned to countries where they are at risk of persecution. Statements that have been mutually agreed should also be lived and obeyed together, right? And accepting refugees can be a win-win formula for the refugees themselves, the country of destination, and the country of origin. Refugees bring a different skill. Refugees bring a different set of skills than natives, which can be key to creating business networks and knowledge diffusion. In conclusion, while accepting refugees can bring economic benefits and be a win-win formula, there may be domestic popular opposition to taking in large numbers of refugees. Accepting refugees also can provide them with basic protection, allow them to rebuild their lives, contribute to the economy of their host country, and improve their mental health and well-being. Thank you.
Miss Ainul Hamdiyah spent 2 minutes. Now, I would like to call the third speaker of the opposition team, Miss Daniella Rina. Time is yours.
As we know, the motion of our debate is this House belief that Western states so take a high number of refugees, even when faced with domestic popular opposition. And we as a negative team believe that this statement is false. Humanity rights are what the affirmative teams emphasize as the reason why Western states should accept refugees. The first speaker of our team has tried to tell that caring for humanity is important. But does it worth it for the host country to take a risk of the possibility of an increase in the crime rate? The background of those refugees is mostly uncertain. We don't know whether they are good people or criminals, which may threaten peace in the host country. In order to strengthen our statement about not accepting refugees, we will give example of some crimes that have been committed by refugees that recorded in American history. First, there was a mass movement known as Merrill Road Leave, which happened in 1980. The Merrill Road Leave recorded approximately 125,000 people of Cuban asylum seekers to the United States. And at the same year, an unexpected incident happened. 3 Cuban refugees had successfully carried out a terrorist attack and killed 3 people. Another incident also happened in November 2016. A Somalian refugee injured 13 people at Ohio State University. No one died, but this incident was very horrible, especially for the victims. These crimes that happen because of refugees so become a consideration for Western states in accepting a high number of refugees. Accepting a high number of refugees might threaten the peace of the host country. Moreover, the other argument that the affirmative team believes in is the professional abilities that refugees might have. The first speaker and second speaker of the affirmative team emphasize about boosting the economy and others. But as the second speaker of our team has stated, the big question is why do they not use their ability for their own country? It's their homeland after all. Why they do not fight for it? Fight for the peace of their own country. And also we would like to add that yes, some refugees might have professional abilities that could use the host country. But does it fair if one day every important role in the country is filled with refugees and not the Aboriginal? This condition may lead to chaos which will bring down the country instead of boosting the country. Therefore, we as a negative team believe that the statement of accepting a high number of refugees is a great move should not become an option for Western states because of some possibility that might lead to crimes or chaos which probably might be hard to be handled by the host country, or in short, the benefits received are not worth the risks that will come or faced by the country. That is all from our team. Thank you.
Miss Daniella spent 3 minutes 42 seconds. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today's debate is over. Now it is time for the adjudicator to decide which team is to be winner of today's debate. See you in another occasion and thank you.